So give me a compelling reason why your conference is better than the other. And before I'll offer this to Kenny first, please go ahead, Kenny.
I think the argument stems from right. Which era are we talking about? We've done this a couple of times on this show. Which era are we talking about? Are we talking about overall historically
current
or
right now?
right now?
Give me a reason. So I'm a new fan of sports. Please.
Who plays better football?
So currently, right now, national champions, Big Ten football. More exciting football, more competitive football ends up being Big Ten. Now, with the addition of 4 of the best schools from the Pac-12, probably the 4 best schools out of the Pac-12, you are now going to get even better competition coming from the West Coast. So you go coast to coast, constantly great football. Whereas the SEC, I think, is an excellent conference, has dominated in the past. But as we're entering a new era of college football playoffs, I think now is the Big Ten's time to shine. And so if you want to get in on the ground floor of the best football in the country, you're going to follow the Big Ten more.
Okay. Connor, without typing on your keyboard.
Well, I was going to pull up. I was going to pull up a graphic. But now I don't have to pull up a graphic because I'm just going to tell you because y'all seen it. Now, when I sent this today, and it is the top 25 hardest schedules in college football, right? According to ESPN, which is the most reputable.
He let you talk.
Sorry, you're right. I'm sorry.
Which is the most reputable, most well-known. When somebody goes to sports, they watch what? ESPN. You don't go on and watch. I mean, they have other outlets, of course, but ESPN is the top dog. They're the monopoly when it comes to, and it's not arguable. This is it.
I agree.
Well, out of the top 10 teams with the hardest schedules in college football, 9 of them are SEC teams. And the 10th one is not a Big Ten team. It's an ACC team, Georgia Tech. Well, if you look at the teams of the hardest schedules in college football, 9 of them are SEC, right? Which is because all of those SEC teams are playing other SEC teams. It is so competitive. The teams are so good at what they do, playing football, that ESPN has decided to make a top 25 list. Frankly, they could have done a top 10, but it just would have been SEC teams, so they had to do 25. To saying that, hey, football is so good in the SEC that 9 out of 10 of the top teams in college football with the hardest schedules are a part of the Southeastern Conference, because that's where football is the best, and it just means more.
So, okay, all right, real quick. As somebody that is coming into this brand new, I just saw Michigan win a national championship, didn't I?
You did.
Okay.
But you
why?
Also
no.
saw...
Hold on. No.
Okay.
Hear me out.
I'll hear you.
So I'm brand new to this game. I'm brand new. Why do I care about schedule strength? I don't give a shit. I saw a Big Ten team win national champions. I didn't see a SEC team do that. So why do I care about schedule strength? I can say the same thing about the Bears. The Bears have the 3rd worst schedule strength, and if they did well this year, I'm gonna be happy about that, right? All right. So why do I care about schedule strength?
Because it means that much more when you get to the top. If you look at the past national champions, Michigan, of course, has got the most recent one. But if you keep looking down, you're going to see Alabama. You're going to see Georgia. You're going to see LSU. The next Big Ten team you get to is in 2014. But between that Big Ten bun is all SEC, baby. The meat is just all SEC right in between those buns. And so whenever they got there, the strength of their schedules, it just meant that much more.
On your list, who has the toughest strength of schedule on that ESPN list?
Florida. And then
when was the last time they won the national championship?
2006, probably.
Okay, so does that mean anything? Does that strength of schedule mean anything? Strength of schedule only matters once we start comparing at the end of the season for viability for the playoffs. If 2 teams are 10-2, then we look at strength of schedule. Until then, I don't really care. We know what.
Kenny, you can say give a shit. Kenny, say give a shit. You're a coach, Kenny. Say give a shit.
I don't give a shit because when Ohio State won the national title in 2014, they lost to Virginia Tech, a team they should have beaten at home They still made the playoff. There was a debate on whether or not they should be in the playoff. They had to go in as number 4. They had to play probably one of the best Alabama teams Saban ever coached, beat them, went on to play against Oregon, one of the high-flying offenses in the past 20 years, beat them. It's any given Saturday is what happens in football. You can give me schedule after schedule. I don't care. You can only play the 12 teams that are listed, and 9 of them are already selected for you by the governing body, right? Ohio State picks their 3 out-of-conference opponents. They choose to play an Ohio opponent every year because they want to build up the sport in their state. They choose to play one tough, besides Ohio State, most of the
they pick dog shit teams, dude.
But you're giving the money to
and they're fucking working over.
You're giving money to an Ohio program, which deserves it more than Louisiana Monroe or whatever. You're building up your schedule. You play probably one tough out of conference team. I think next year Ohio State plays Texas. Last year they played Notre Dame and Oregon out of conference. I think that the debate for schedule strength is only good once we get to mid-November, early December when we're selecting now our 12 playoff teams.
Connor,
I think until then it's
Connor, hold your thought. Kenny, my only argument to that conversation is you're the one hard team and using Notre Dame. I'm gonna say it.
2. There were 2 last year. Oregon and Notre Dame.
Okay, Oregon, I will argue. Okay, that's fine. I'm cool with that. Oregon, I think, is a hard team. However,
next year Texas.
I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not. They're fine. But that whole Notre Dame, you can't.
Historically, they're an important team.
But not to the Big Ten.
That's half of the SEC, though. Half of the SEC.
Not to the Big Ten.
Right, but I'm not saying who gets scheduled in the Big Ten. I'm talking about out-of-conference strength of schedule.
Kenny,
if you put Notre Dame on your schedule,
historically, what happened in 1993 with the Chicago Bulls and the Phoenix Suns, that's historically.
Right.
Who gives a fuck, dude? No, we're talking about right now. No,
if we're talking about ESPN, the ESPN bias definitely swings towards Notre Dame as well. And if you put Notre Dame on
no, it doesn't. NBC does.
As soon as Notre Dame goes 5-0, ESPN is all over them.
No, I
100%. You watch if Marcus Freeman can turn that program around this year, you watch by week 5, everybody's going to be on Notre Dame's dick. Just watch. It's going to happen.
I don't know about that.
If they can put together a good start, they're in good shape. They're going to be loved by ESPN. The point is that when you have Notre Dame on your schedule, it doesn't matter what everybody else looks at. Everybody sees that as, oh my God, that's Notre Dame. Whether or not that's the truth
historically, it's like what you said. Historically, I don't disagree with that. You're right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong with that.
By that standard, that's still a big notch on Ohio State's belt. They went out and they played Notre Dame. Who did Alabama play last year as their out-of-conference opponents? Citadel? Somebody like Citadel?
But you know what, Kenny?
They might as well be playing D3. They might go up and play North Park then.
When you say, oh my gosh, that's Notre Dame.
Elmer's, Kenny.
Hold up. When you say, oh my gosh, they have to play Notre Dame, do you know what happens when the SEC schedule comes out? Oh my gosh, we have to play Georgia. Oh my gosh, we have to play Alabama. Oh my gosh, we have to play LSU. Oh my gosh, we have to play Ole Miss. Oh my gosh, we have to play Missouri. Now Ole Miss is ranked number 5 in the country. Excuse me. Now we have Texas and Oklahoma. Hold up. And now you're sitting here telling me, oh my gosh, Ohio State has to play Notre Dame. Who else do I have to play? Michigan and Penn State? Who else, Kenny? Who else does Ohio State have to play that people are like, oh my gosh? Because if you can present to me a team that is actually ranked that I can say, oh my gosh, to, I will give you the strength of scheduling debate. But until you can tell me
of schedule debate, you can have that debate.
Well, you told me you don't give a crap about it when it is so valid that you just brought up Notre Dame and a strength of schedule and said, oh my gosh, to it, when Notre Dame not even part of the freaking Big Ten. They are independent.
You misunderstood my point. My point is that Ohio State doesn't get to pick all of their opponents. They get to pick 3 out-of-conference opponents. That's why strength of schedule doesn't matter that much to me. Ohio State selected Virginia Tech for a home-and-home series, and they lost to Virginia Tech.
It doesn't matter to you because big. It doesn't matter to you because big.
Shut up. You're muted too. All right. So how about this? Real quick. How about this? So I like this. I like this. This is good because Connor, you're talking about. I'm not muting. I'll unmute you guys in a second. Connor, you're talking about Kenny's conversation about like. I get it, strength of schedule, whatever. It's bullshit. I agree. However, Connor, you just brought up the point of like, oh my God, we have this team, we have this team, we have this team. That's this. Okay, so Penn State. All right, so teams in your respective conferences that you guys are representing right now. How about this? What are the teams that are scary from those actual respective conferences? Because we're talking about the actual like strength of these conferences, guys. All right, so Penn State, fucking love that. I think Penn State's fun as shit. Anyway, we're not gonna go into this, but I want you guys to talk about your thoughts from that respective conference because I think that's appropriate. All right, so fuck the strength of schedule, fuck all that stuff. Actually, like think about this, like those actual teams, like. I like that. Connor brought this up, and I like this point. Like, what's the oh shit factor that we're talking about right now? All right, so not even strength of schedule. Let's kick that out. Let's just like put it for say like, I mean, Kenny, I'm gonna say U of I. Ain't no fucking oh shit factor with U of I, my guy. so like I like this. Like Connor, I do like this. So. Can you guys elaborate on that stuff a little bit more? All right, hold on real quick. All right, so Kenny's got a point. So Connor, shut the fuck up. Let Kenny elaborate on this real quick. Hold on, Kenny. Hold on. There you go.
So I think first of all, your last statement, where's the oh shit factor? Connor listed all of the top tier teams. That I could list the top 5 teams from the Big Ten too. Where's the oh shit factor? You said Illinois. Where's the oh shit factor for Arkansas? Up until the past maybe 2 seasons. Where's the oh shit factor for Ole Miss? Minus Missouri beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl last year. Where's their oh shit factor?
I like it.
Okay. Now, on top of that, if you want to go down the list of where's the oh shit factor, there's only one thing that you need to say, and that is Ohio State versus that team up north. That is the greatest rivalry in all of sports. That's the one thing that on Saturday, November 30th at noon, everybody's going to be paying attention to. I don't care who Alabama's playing on November 30th. Probably Citadel or Georgia Tech or whoever the fuck, little sister of the poor that they're going to play. Because
why's it gotta be little sister of the poor, Kenny?
Sorry, it's an old term from my dad. Sorry. At the end of the day, Ohio State puts on their big boy pants for the biggest game of their lifetime, and they get to do it that last Saturday.
Well, they have to.
And that's why that's your oh shit factor. I understand the conference has probably gone through a lull for a long time, but when you have the rivalry, they don't have a stupid little trophy for it. They don't have a little moniker for it. It's just called the game. That's it. That's all they need to call it, because when you think you think of college football, you think of scarlet and gray versus maize and blue, hard knocks hitting each other all the time. There's no other debate.
You know what happens when
Kenny or Connor, shut up.
I can't say anything.
You can. Give me a second. So, all right. So, everything that he just said, he's getting juices flowing right now, dude. He's getting me like to that point. I'm about to jump through this table and fucking just get after it right now. You better come up with something, Connor, because I'm gonna tell you right now, dude. I'm ready to go.
You know what happens when you think of college football? You want me to tell you something? And it is a game. Yeah, that's for sure. You think of a game, right? But what happens is you're not thinking of scarlet and whatever. You're not thinking of those colors that you just named out. You're thinking of Alabama. They're lining up on the 30th, 40th yard line. It's 2013, right? We have Alabama versus Auburn. Alabama can win the game with the field goal. It's 24-24 tied up. Right, Auburn's in kick return, almost field goal return coverage, and you see Chris Davis. You see Chris Davis underneath the field goal post, getting ready. He is anticipating a missed field goal, a short field goal, and guess what happens? Alabama's kicker, a team that has been a dynasty, probably the greatest franchise of all time in college football, arguably. And what happens is The ball is too short. Chris Davis returns it, and he takes it back for a
Oh,
kick
we got
assist. He
Gators!
takes it
We got
back for a
Gators!
tutty, 100 yards for a touchdown to
Oh!
beat Alabama, to not take Auburn. If you there were no playoffs back then, so Auburn winning this game
Let's go, Gators!
boosted them to the national championship. Only the top 2 teams can go to the national championship then. And by beating Alabama, by beating the number 1 team in the country, Auburn went up and made the BCS championship. That's what happens when you think of college football. You don't think of Ohio State, Michigan playing in 1933. I'm sorry. People watch football. And when you watch football, you're turning on an SEC game. You're not turning on Ohio State and Michigan, because look, I've explained this before. When you dip your toothpick in the SEC cake, it is completely ready. It is completely ready, all balls to the walls, to go and play some football. You just told me you don't care about anybody but Ohio State and Michigan in your own conference. When you pick toothpick that cake of the Big Ten, there is still liquid underneath, because that cake is not ready, because the teams in the Big Ten are not competitive enough as the teams in the SEC. That cake is fully done in the SEC. You want to bring up Arkansas, Kenny? You want to bring up Arkansas? Talk about Wisconsin. Talk about the I can't say UCLA. Talk about Purdue. Talk about Northwestern. Talk about Nebraska. Talk about Minnesota.
Arkansas go to West Lafayette.
What have those teams done?
And see what they do.
We cannot say Arkansas, bring up one team when you have only brought up 2 teams in your conference that have meant anything to your. I'm bringing up teams that have been so instrumental in the SEC, being what the powerhouse of the SEC is. And all you can say is 2 teams.
Hold on, real quick, Kenny. Thank you, appreciate you. All right, MJ is going to mediate for a little bit.
Hey guys.
So let's let that chill for a little bit. I'll be back in a little bit. MJ, your turn. Kenny, you're more than welcome to continue that.
So,
my God,
I do have a question for you, gentlemen, being recently introduced to this. As you know, the situation Bruce presented as a hypothetical is actually pretty realistic for me. I do not know college football very well. I'm still new to the space. So for somebody who has just started watching very recently, when I think of the 2 conferences, when I think of Big Ten, I think of Michigan and Ohio State. When I think of SEC, I think of Georgia and Bama. Okay. I really don't think of much else. Like LSU, cool. They had a one-off. A couple of SEC teams have had one-offs. But for the most part, it has been those 2 teams for the last decade. Am I wrong?
I'd say you're correct.
Obviously, Bama had a very big run. So my thing is, if you guys want to go all the way down to the bottom, that's fine. But I'm curious how you guys would compare. Give me your top 3 from each conference, because respectfully, I don't give a rip about Wisconsin. I don't give a rip about Arkansas or Ole Miss or anybody who's not Bama, Georgia, or LSU probably would be the 3rd. And then Michigan, Ohio State, and whoever Kenny wants to present as the 3rd, now that they've got some more people around there.
But you should care. We're talking about conference as a whole, not just 3 teams to make up a conference. See, that's where the argument gets skewed, because we're not talking about a whole
Your
conference.
argument for the Iron Bowl is only important in the 2000s. Historically, the Iron Bowl means nothing. Alabama's dominated that series. That's like talking about that team up north against Michigan State. That's what that rivalry is. The team up north kicks the shit out of Michigan State 8 times out of 10. Every once in a while, Michigan State puts up a decent run. That's your argument. MJ is 100% right. You want to talk Alabama and Georgia. That's the crux of your argument, because those are your 2 best teams.
Yeah, they're the 2 best teams. Yeah.
So I'm curious.
But go down to Texas A&M. Go down to Missouri. Go down to Arkansas. You didn't even know who Brett Bielema was. They fired Brett Bielema because he couldn't do anything. Meanwhile, in Wisconsin, he's a god because he led the Badgers to a few Rose Bowls. There's a difference between the top and the bottoms of the conferences. If you want to go all the way down to 18 for Big Ten, and I think it's 16 for the SEC.
Yeah, but I'm not considering Texas.
That's a very level. That's a very level playing field right now. And that was my next question: do I get to count the new teams that have entered the conference?
I'm not counting them because they have no. They have no weight in our conferences, right?
And so only because my argument becomes Washington played the Wolverines in the national title, which would mean that was a Big Ten title, which essentially makes it that much better that we were all in the championship.
But it wouldn't have been if they had been in the same conference. Let's keep that real. That would not have seen the same conference national championship because it wouldn't have.
You would have, because you've had Alabama play Georgia in the national championship.
But that's like the one time ever. Like Georgia and Alabama just played in the SEC championship, and only one of them made the playoffs
this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and Michigan and probably Ohio State played in the national or the Big Ten championship, or was it Michigan?
It was they go by division. Wolverines and Ohio State are in the same division, so those who played for the right to go to Indianapolis, and I think
Iowa.
If I remember correctly, it was Iowa, and they got.
So all right, real quick. All right, so we're bringing in history. We're talking history. Kenny, why is the SEC's all-time record against the Big Ten 68-36? Like, why does the SEC have 68 wins against the Big Ten's 36?
Yeah, well, historically speaking, when you put teams like Northwestern up against South Carolina in a bowl game, it's going to be a little bit one-sided. That's kind of how that goes in bowl games, because typically they're not playing each other outside of.
Well, those are the so
postseason.
We did talk about the committee, right? And the committee matches up people against teams that they feel is a fair shake, correct?
If you're talking about out of conference, or you're talking about for like a bowl game?
He's talking about bowl games.
Bowl games and out of conference.
So bowl games historically are historically based on where you finish in your conference versus another.
Yes, you're right.
Rose Bowl
they try to make it comparable. They try to make it like
only if it matches up. Only if it matches up for what they're looking for. So Ohio State, being the number one team in the conference, traditionally would play the number one Pac-10 team.
We're trying to make a narrative into something right now. That's not true, because they try to make sure their teams, the teams. All right, so throw out Big Ten, throw out SEC. They try to make sure it's competitive, correct? And you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're right. You're right in regards to like.
I'm just saying that if I'm
third in conference, I'm gonna play the third team in conference.
If you look at the old Outback Bowl, right? And I think that's where South Carolina demolished Northwestern or another Big Ten team.
It was South Carolina and Michigan, where Jadeveon Clowney had the big hit on Denard Robinson. Hold on.
It
was on the cover of NCAA 14. Sorry.
All right, so Michigan lost, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Kenny, what team lost?
That team up north.
Just say the name, damn it!
No, we're 2 weeks out of the season. There's no more. You don't call them by that name.
Anyway, all right. So go ahead.
The Wolverines or the team up north.
I think it's more respectable to say the Wolverines
than calling them by their university name. I mean, I could just call them cheaters, but either way.
Well, so is Ohio State.
Hey, what does Nate say, Connor?
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
And at least we admit to our mistakes and we pay the penalties.
I will say Nick Saban.
Let's just say the Outback Bowl would pit the number 3 SEC team versus the number 3 Big Ten team. That's just and then if it doesn't work, if the number 3 Big Ten team ends up in some sort of other game, then they would reevaluate, and then that's how you get a more competitive or comparable game.
I like this though, but that being said, though, like you've seen, like Northwestern. All right, I'm just using that as an example. Like somehow, like put Michigan in a situation or Ohio State in a situation that they're playing a SEC team, in a bowl game, and from what it looks like, the SEC team has been a little bit more successful in said endeavors.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that over a historical period of time, the Big Ten typically falls to one of two teams being the absolute best. and that's who you usually see in the Rose Bowl or now the playoffs. It's definitely arguable that postseason play, the SEC is probably a little bit better than the Big Ten.
Bruce, you don't know what you just did. You just gave me so much ammo right here because I just looked up the history of the Outback Bowl, which is now the Really a Quest Bowl, which is Big Ten versus SEC. And out of the past 10 games, hold up, Big Ten versus SEC. You're right, Kenny. They compare. The third best team in the Big Ten plays the third best team in the SEC. That's right. It's compared, right? So when you take the third best in each conference, who comes out on top? Out of the past 10 games, 8 times the SEC has beaten the Big Ten out of the past 10 games. If you go before that, LSU won before that. South Carolina won before that. We'll give it to Michigan State the year before that. Florida, Auburn, Iowa before that. Tennessee, Florida, Georgia. It's always SEC. You rarely see the Big Ten coming out on top because there's more consistency in the SEC. I'm telling you, it's a complete cake. And when you pin teams that are sort of in the bottom, and we're not talking about Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, whatever, the SEC always comes out on top because it's just better football.
Hey, Connor, you know why I don't care? I could not care less about South Carolina Northwestern in January.
But you should. We're talking about conference, not just two teams on each side.
Can I talk? As somebody who is not absolutely obsessed with college football, as somebody who is just a general sports fan, I could not give fewer about Arkansas or South Carolina or Northwestern or Wisconsin. You know what I want to watch?
Do you bet on
I want
sports?
to watch the national championship game. I want to watch the playoff game.
I bet on sports. You guys bet on sports? I bet on sports. Kenny, you don't bet on sports?
I can't in Texas.
Why don't you bet on sports, Kenny?
I have an addictive personality, and I don't want it to get away from me.
There you go. Respect.
But, Connor, you bet on sports? Oh, you can't in Mississippi, can you?
I don't think so.
Man, am I the only one that bets on sports here?
You can do like underdog fantasy, I guess.
I don't even bet a lot either. It's like a buck here, buck there, $10 here. Huh?
Can I please finish my thought?
Do you want me to be your bookie? You can send it. You can send me like a $10. I'll bet.
Yes. We'll talk about that later.
All right,
we'll talk about that later. Venmo transactions for pizza.
100%, dude. Done.
Connor, I understand what you're saying, and I understand why you're saying it because you root for one of the bottom teams in the SEC.
Wow.
I do. I go to the college as well, but at least I go do a. Never mind.
But I couldn't care less about those baby schools.
Because that's what makes up a conference, though. We can't say we don't care about the conference and only pin 2 teams don't make up a conference.
Do I use the 9-8 Minnesota Vikings when I'm arguing for the NFC North? No, I use the team that's in first. Okay, so I don't care. I want to watch
the Lions.
No, when you say which division is the best in NFL. When you say which division is the best in NFL, you are taking account of all 4 teams in that division. You are not saying just the Chicago Bears. Hold up. You are taking account of 4 teams. You're taking account of 4 teams. We're not saying, oh, the AFC West is the best division in football because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. That's not what we're saying. This is what y'all are saying with the Big Ten. Big Ten is the best conference because Michigan won the national championship. The AFC West is indeed not the best division in NFL because the champions are in that division. That does not make the best division of the NFL. So you can keep sitting here and saying, oh, I care about the Super Bowl. But MJ, the AFC West is not the best division in football just because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
You know what? I'm going to do something none of you ever thought I would do. I'm going to agree with Jack and praise Tom Brady in the same sentence. You want to know why the AFC East was the best and the hardest division in football?
Hold on, was.
You
can't say was. It's about now, right now, dude.
What?
Oh, you're saying I'm making
if we are talking about now.
No. Okay, you're saying so from
please
someone new. My bad. Go. I get it. Go. My bad.
The AFC East. You know why some of those teams sucked for years? Because they had the hardest guaranteed 2 games. Okay. I would argue the AFC East was the hardest division in football for decades, because to go through Tom Brady to get to the playoffs, especially before the wild card was expanded, was almost impossible.
Talk about the Bills.
Okay.
How about
So now, if you want to talk about the AFC West, well, yeah, I would argue it's almost impossible to win the AFC West. Even with an expanded wild card, it is really hard to get into the playoffs while in that division. How many teams have gotten into the playoffs from that division since Patrick Mahomes went on his run? Almost none. So if you want to talk about college, I couldn't care less about the crappy little teams at the bottom. If you're not making the playoffs, if you're not winning national championships, I don't care. So if you want to talk Bama, Georgia versus Michigan, Ohio State, I'll listen. If you bring up any other irrelevant ass little crappy school, I don't care.
Okay, well, you obviously don't care about stats because the AFC North took three.
Shut up.
Hold up. The AFC North took 3 teams to playoffs. You care about playoffs so much. The AFC North took 3 teams to the playoffs. So therefore, they would be the best division. But neither of them won the Super Bowl, right? Neither of them won the Super Bowl. But 3 of their teams went to the playoffs. 3 of their teams went to the playoffs. So by your argument, right? You want to see people go to the playoffs, but yeah, you're going to sit here and tell me the AFC West is the best division in football.
Yes.
Which is horrible. You are literally like looking at stats, taking it, going hot Tua, and throwing it away.
Hot Tua.
Literally, you are looking at numbers and say, "Oh, well, 5 plus 5 doesn't equal 10."
Why do we play the game? Why do we play the game?
That's not. We play the game to win championship. I get that. I'm talking about who plays the best football. And when you have more people going to the postseason, you play the best football. I don't care what you want to sit here and tell me that, the best team went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl. Yes. But if they went on and played Illinois and Michigan State to get there, of course they made the freaking national championship because the teams they had to play to get there. When you go to the SEC, you have the most top-ranked 25 teams in the entire country you got to get through. To get to the national championship is very, very difficult. And the very sheer fact that the most national championships of the past 15 years have almost 90% been the SEC is almost incredible. And if you look at numbers and tell me that those numbers lie, then you are in fact mistaken, my friend. Go look at the tape. Go watch the tape.
Brought up a number that made sense.
Go watch the tape.
The first time you've brought up a number that made sense. So listen, Connor, here's the thing. Yes, that is true. The majority of the championships have come from the SEC. That's the first time you've brought up an argument that actually makes sense. I don't care about Arkansas. I care about the people winning championships. So that's where your argument wins, flat out. That's where you slam Kenny into the ground every single time. All respect given, Kenny. Is Georgia, Bama, championships. Flip them up, smack them, rub them down.
I mean, he's cooking. Motherfucker's cooking. I used to flip.
But you know how many times I brought that argument?
He did. He already
I said that
this.
Probably 3 times. 3 times. And the amount of times you looked at it and said, "Oh,
hey, I was here."
Yes, we were all here. We were all here.
I was here.
And the sheer fact that you can look at me and say, "Why have you not brought that up before?" means that you truly do not care about this conversation, which is why you are not in it.
I don't.
Oh my God.
I don't.